Okay, so go
I think
continue.
we're recording. Does that show on your end?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I am very thankful to Stephanie Prado for connecting us. And Sunshine, will you introduce yourself for us, who you are, and what you do, and what's most important to know about your job?
Well, my name is Sunshine Wu Fisher. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am the mental health coordinator at the Institute for Human and Social Development, IHSD. I've been there for about 4 years. As the mental health coordinator, I oversee kind of like what are the mental health, behavioral, needs in the way that we support staff and through them support families. Um, so one of the main jobs that I have is that when there is a child who has kind of who displays aggressive behavior or challenges or mental health concerns in the classroom, the staff person might let me know. And then we may hold a multidisciplinary team meeting, which is a meeting that includes the teachers. We have a family support kind of staff as well. Myself, we have a disabilities manager, and we also have a mental health consultant. So we have a mental health consultant that comes from Star Vista. It's a mental health agency. At each of our at all of our programs, there's a mental health consultant assigned. So we would all meet together and kind of think about what's going on for that child, putting all the different pieces of the puzzle about that child and what could be contributing to their behavior, put that all together, formulate some sort of behavior support plan with strategies, and then also meet with the family to both get more insight into the child's history and their, what things are going on at home, and then collaborate together so that strategies that we might be using in the classroom can also be supported at home. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a synopsis of my role. And then I also kind of look at the overall mental wellness of the agency. What are some staff wellness pieces that we can put in? What are the staff trainings that they might need? Things like that. So
Yeah. As you're saying this, it's just making me think about this is really the gold standard that agencies strive for, of having these multidisciplinary teams. And our class has been learning about transdisciplinary teaming and how that's a little bit different. And just wanting to acknowledge that some schools might not have such sophisticated systems set up. So, in general, could you just describe maybe what sense sets mental health apart from some of the other early intervention teams, like occupational therapy and um, disability specific interventions?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that mental health, and this is, both in my role and the mental health consultant's role, we're looking at early childhood, and we're looking through kind of a trauma-informed lens. If a child has a history of abuse, or they were witnessing domestic violence, or they were homeless, or they have parents that are suffering from substance abuse, that could very well impact their behavior. And so then their behavior might be impacted by a general world view that relationships aren't trustworthy, or that
Mm,
people are out there to hurt you. When your whole life, all that you've known is that the people that take care and love you aren't there for you, or that they are hurting you, then
mhm.
it definitely influences the way that you behave. And so then that can, when we're looking at behavior, we start to dig in that way of, could there be, trauma, or just kind of difficult relationships or stress at home that could be impacting this child's behavior, not just looking at kind of physical health, or at, even development. You can look at development, there's a lot of intersection between kind of mental health and developmental disabilities. But I think mental health in itself, we're looking more at what are the relationships like, what's the quality of the connection and the bonds that are there, and what could be contributing to the behaviors that we see. So we really see behavior as symptoms. It's sort of like you're not just your purpose there is not just to make them behave well and be safe and know what to do in the classroom. You're kind of looking at what happened to you. Let me try and understand why your little self um, feels compelled to do this. That
Mm-hmm.
if things were going well in your upbringing, you probably would not be um, hurting others. You'd be wanting to connect and make friends and learn. And, you're kind of free to just be, you know, a person that way. But then when you have all of these experiences that really kind of break you down and make you distrustful, then you then face the world like, oh, here's a person, that person's going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you first. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting in my space, I'm going to hurt you. I don't know how to talk to you nicely. I only know how to yell at you because that's how I was treated. That's how I get my needs met. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you and I were talking about sharing circles of where we've learned and grown up as early childhood mental health providers. I'm I'm also thinking of our class read The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris about the adverse childhood experiences. And I think, if I'm quoting properly, it's in that book where she says we have to shift the conversation from what's wrong with you to what happened to you.
yeah.
And I feel like that for me is the question in many different ways that we bring to the table with an ECMH lens.
It's coming with compassion rather
Mhm,
than coming with judgment. Coming with judgment is what's wrong with you. And what
mhm,
happened to you is I recognize you as a person struggling and trying to do the best you can. And what happened to make your behavior this way rather than the other kids that are doing well.
mhm,
So and
mhm,
how can we support you? How can we make things better? So part of it could be advocating around the parents, hey, you need to make sure that they get enough sleep at night. If not, then they will be coming in sleep deprived and angry and moody and not ready to learn. If they're eating donuts for breakfast and not getting their nutrients, we want to make sure that they get a better diet, getting physical exercise, especially for younger kids that really need to let out that energy. Those pieces are like the foundation. And then also connecting with them about, hey, if you've been through these difficult times, you know parents are separated, there was a lot of fighting at home that the child witnessed, or other factors, then you might want to have the mental work with the mental health consultant or get some therapy, parent-child therapy with your young child. I mean, for typically in mental health, they do play therapy for kind of more school age kids. In this age group, it tends to be there's some that do play therapy, but there's also parent-child therapy where they're working
mhm.
with the parent and the child in the therapy room together, healing that relationship. So, if the child is really mad at mom because he or she blames mom for why dad's not in their lives anymore, then, there's some repair work on looking at that together, looking at trauma together, looking at how, what helping the parent understand the child and connect with the child more.
Yeah. I mean, and I think another shift is people can sometimes refer to mental health thinking that we're going to do therapy with the child. And I always say I'm doing therapy for the child, and it's usually with the other adults. And really making sure that we're using the primary relationship as the tool for intervention instead of us coming in for our 1 hour of a week
And
to work with the child.
Yeah, and that's mainly what mental health consultants do, is that they provide an indirect service with the child. The child
Hmm.
never has a primary relationship with that consultant, even though they might hang out in the classroom and observe, and the child might know and smile, at the consultant. But what the consultant is doing is observing the child in the classroom, coming up with certain hypotheses or questions and wonderings about what might be going on for that child, and then working with the parent, working with the teacher, to try to figure out how to best help that child, because they're helping the primary relationship with the child and parent to improve, and the child and the teacher to improve, so that they can um, understand and be more compassionate to the child. So
Yeah, yeah. And apologies to folks who are picking up my leaf blower. Somebody's blowing leaves outside and working from home. Um, we also, just sunshine, so you know, Zoom sends us a transcript as well, so people can read bits of this that they need to as we go. Um, I'll also be posting resources for students who are watching this now, and you're just kind of reminding me that maybe I'll also include a few tidbits from Don't Hit My Mommy, which is the child parent psychotherapy model that you and I were trained in. Um, but for folks, just to give folks an idea of like who we are, can you just briefly describe like the range of training and degrees and kind of how people come into these positions?
yeah, yeah. So both as a mental health coordinator and as a mental health consultant, you would need a master's degree. So you can get that in a clinical field. It could be in a master's in social work. It could be a master's in marriage family therapy. Or even, like a PsyD, a doctoral degree in clinical psychology, but it's a clinical degree. And then probably, I think that for teachers who want to become a consultant, it's really wonderful, because you already know, you have a personal experience of the challenges of being a teacher and being in the classroom, and that kind of master's degree will only kind of help you to learn more about how to think psychologically about a child, or about a family system, or about a parent. But
Well,
you,
and also many of them are doing that already, just unpaid. You're kind of,
yeah,
I find so many teachers are informally have that or that gut feeling and are informally kind of doing that work already.
right. So then it's kind of getting the training, and the training is not just the classes, but it's the internship that you get. So if
Hmm.
you get an internship, following a consultant, or in infant parent psychotherapy, which is through the infant parent program where I was trained, then you get to do mental health in the early childhood realm, which then makes you a very, very kind of ideal candidate for someone who's hiring, mental health consultants. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you and I are happy to connect with students if you're curious about pursuing that. Let us
anybody
know.
reaching out, and I'm connected with the Star Vista is the mental health agency that provides mental health consultants. I think they have like 8 or 10 mental health consultants. Like 6 of them are involved with all of our programs here at IHSD. So I'd be happy to connect you, to talk about mental health consultants and my work further.
Yeah. Speaking of the infant parent program, I'm remembering some of the work Khadijah did with my program around vicarious trauma and protecting ourselves. And I'm wondering if um, you want to offer some ideas or what your personal beliefs and practices are around planning for and protecting against vicarious trauma or compassion fatigue or secondary traumatic stress in them, all of the different words, but
Yeah.
doing trauma, serving children who've experienced trauma can be traumatic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there are some good books out there already about that. But I think that for me, it's really paying attention to yourself, and having that space to reflect, whether it's with a coworker, with your supervisor, or with somebody, about like, I'm getting triggered by this child, or this time of day, just really, I feel frazzled or I feel worn out, and trying to think about that, and pay attention, and to really have self-care in your life, whether it's, having things that are 30-second or 1 minute things that you can do to kind of boost yourself. Maybe it's, listening to a good music, or, just going in and taking some deep breaths, and then having something that's a little bit longer, maybe a meditation you listen to, or, going for a walk, having physical exercise, to kind of get that stress and energy out of you. I think really paying attention to, just the regular building blocks that you need, good sleep, and good
Mm.
diet,
Mhm.
and, just
All the things we
connecting with
recommend for kids
others.
that we're serving.
Exactly, exactly. It's good for human beings, whether you're small or big. I
Yeah.
think that all contributes, and just, a lot of self-compassion. I think that this work can be really, really hard, and we can feel like, constant judging of ourselves, that we didn't handle a particular situation well enough,
Mm.
or that we could be doing this better, or I don't know what I'm doing. But just having a lot of, being your own best friend, and being able to
Mhm.
be that cheerleader for yourself, that you are doing the best that you can, and, so that you can calm your brain. And when your brain is calm, you can think better about, what might I need more to do my job better? Or
Mhm.
what I need right now to support myself better. When you can get out of um, that space of just being frazzled and reactive, having the peace and the contemplation can help you
Mhm.
to just really figure out, hey, what am I seeing? What do I need?
And if you're in a workplace where it's not naturally built in, it can require a lot of discipline. It's almost more work to take care of yourself. One thing that came to mind is you were talking about self-care and this like not judging ourselves for getting triggered. I think it wasn't until well into this work that I realized that those triggers are my gifts that the client's giving me to dig deeper, or that I'm in the right spot, or that they're giving me some valuable information.
Mhm.
And so just kind of naming that sometimes those gut reactions are important and valuable. It's not letting them control us or take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even for a child, if you feel like, oh, gets under my skin, he might be getting under everybody's skin. And
Yeah.
that's something that he's good at, because that gets him the reaction that and the attention that he might not otherwise get,
Mhm.
or it could be a chance to look at your own thing. Why am I triggered about this? Is there something in my own childhood? Does this person remind
Mm.
me of someone in my life that's something really similar? Do I need to look at this further? Is this my button? Or
Mhm.
is this
That we
something?
all have, that we all
Exactly,
have.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm looking at the list of the questions that the student has, or the students offered us. And this has been for kind of all the different disciplines, but do you have any advice or recommendations on how classroom teachers can best partner with mental health providers, things that they can hold in mind, or even ways that they can think like a mental health specialist when they're doing their day-to-day job?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the ways would be to really pay attention when you're interacting with the child. And I think even some way to, capture, take your own notes.
Mm,
In our agency, we have this, it's called the behavior incident report. So you don't have to have a whole form, but in the form, like, it's sort of like, what time did this happen?
mm,
Was it outside? It was it inside? Was it in the kitchen? Was it in the circle time? What time, who was involved? Was it just one kid? Was it the teachers that were involved? And what happened? What are the triggers? I think when you sometimes a child could be reacting like playing with a teacher, and then all of a sudden
mm.
he smacks her,
Yeah.
and you're like, it came out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Pay attention. Was siren
Seemingly
that
came
just
out of
went
nowhere.
through, because maybe a siren reminded that child of the accident that he witnessed, and then he got into fight or fight mode. and wham, or it could be nothing. And the child's just like, when something's really calm, I'm expecting something else to happen. So wham, I'm going to hit you before you hit me. It can be very telling. So just gathering the data, and also, not only what happened before, but what happened after.
Mm.
What did you do? Did you calm the child? Did you reprimand the child? Is the child fearful of getting that reprimand for you, so they're running away? Just trying to really gather that information, so then when you do meet with the mental health person, you can relay, these are the challenges, these are the strengths, this
Mm-hmm.
is what it's like to be in relationship, these are the things that could be triggers, particularly I think sensory triggers, like
Yes, yes.
sounds, textures, lots of people around. There's usually during kind of free choice time is when things get quite loud, or it builds up the sound, and that could be triggering some
Mm-hmm.
behavior, or transitions could be triggering.
I was just mentioning with another student, sorry to interrupt, that particularly during COVID, transitions are even more stressful. Do you have the masks? Did you sanitize? Are you keeping distance? Like there's a lot more
There's more
rigidity and
steps.
protocol, and yeah, that transitions in and of themselves are so much more stressful for kids during
Yeah.
COVID.
And during the pandemic, there's, not only for the adults, we're all like, oh, we're wearing masks. Am I going to get infected? There's a fearful climate. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that children, even if they're younger, they still pick up on that nervousness. And I think that can contribute to transitions being hard, because I want the safety of everything staying exactly the same. And so when
Mm-hmm.
something changes and I have to put on my mask, I have to stop playing, those are harder because of that climate where everybody's kind of more on edge, and
Yeah.
not doing so well.
I'm
Just
having a hard time, and I've had 40 years to figure out my body and my sensory system and my trauma and my history.
and
So I
for
was
young
4.
children, yeah, for young children, they pick up, they don't have all the experience to know what's going on, but they have that sensor about how are the
Mm-hmm.
adults, both the adults at home as well as the adults in the classroom, how are they doing? If they're not doing well, I just feel this unease. And so when I feel this unease, I might turn inward and just kind of clam up, zone out, not make friends, or I might, kind of hit or yell or disrupt to get the
Mm-hmm.
attention so I can feel a little safer.
Yeah, seeking connection can look really messy sometimes.
It can seem like they're pushing you away when they're trying to get close to you.
Yeah. Are there any red flags that you think might get missed or that you want to remind or draw to people's attention? I personally find that the squeaky wheel kid, typically people pick up on aggressive or what we sometimes call externalized behaviors, things that are happening outside the child. But do you have any ideas of like maybe some blind spots from a mental health perspective for people to pay more attention to? I know that for me, the kid that's always happy concerns me. Like, if you don't have a full range of emotions, I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think being in the classroom, the ones that I get pulled at are the ones with the behaviors, and that's causing kind of safety concerns, particularly in the classroom. I think that sometimes the really kind of child that seems, yeah, just zoned out or just not interested in relationships, just likes being
Mm,
alone, not quite connected to people, would kind of be someone that I would kind of keep that eye on, and just other types of distress. If someone just has a lot of separation anxiety,
mm,
even after months, then I would say that's some sort of trigger. What could be causing that child to feel so insecure after the regular amount of time that it takes kids of this age to adjust?
mm-hmm.
Is there something
Yeah.
more that we want to learn about? And a lot of that is building a relationship with the parent built on trust, so that the parent can disclose to you and feel comfortable telling you, yeah, this difficulty might be because such and such, which is even harder in the current climate, where a lot of policies are parents drop their kid off right at the front, they don't go inside, you don't get to talk
Mm-hmm.
to them, there's no relationship building. So in this time, I think that,
Everyone's dressed like an Ebola outbreak.
yeah,
Yeah. So
Um, and
scary.
it's like you can only enter around this time to this time. There's no like reading to the child inside and helping them adjust. So it's hard for the child, it's hard for the parent, and it's hard to build that relationship. So if there's other ways in the program that you can make those connections, are there, parent workshops or times that you can just check in,
Mm,
and do a virtual home visit, or do something to try and find out more about the child, or just build a connection with the parent.
yeah. Sensor is such a great word that you've gifted me. Like kids have a sensor for when adults are on the same page, or at least in communication. They might never see it or hear it, but they have a felt sense of the caregivers caring for them effectively or as a team.
Yeah. And if the child is so mistrustful at the school and so uncomfortable, you want to look into how comfortable does a parent feel about putting
Hmm.
that child in. Is the parent having parent separation anxiety from the child who's been their whole life, and all of a sudden they're sending them off, and maybe they're having mixed feelings, or they're just really mistrustful of the child's school, not because of the
Hmm.
school, but maybe because of things that happened to them when they were younger, where they were mistreated at school, or there's particular things in that school that trigger for them, feelings of mistrust. And so then
Hmm.
making that extra effort to connect with the parent and helping the parent feel safe may be the way to help the child feel safe.
Hmm. Yeah, that parallel process of helping the parent feel safe and seen. Yeah, the trickle down of that is so powerful and so nuanced. I mean, there's no guaranteed way to get it all right. And I think sometimes that's the bravest part of this work, is that we don't know and we can just try and see. We might be wrong.
Yeah. And there isn't an answer at the end of, at the back of the book. It is just trying and having the good intention and staying curious. I think accepting that you don't know the answers and just wondering
Hmm.
what's contributing to this child's behavior, wondering what's this child's relationships at home like, or history like. And then you ask those questions to the parent, so that you can find out a little bit more and try to figure out what's contributing to the behavior, and also what could help.
Hmm.
And reaching out, to mental health support when it feels like it's necessary, or needed,
Yeah.
or helpful.
Yeah. I just want to congratulate our cohort, Stephanie's group of students. They've maybe one or two have met each other, but they're their first cohort that's completely virtually onboarded. And from what I hear from many of them, they have this group chat going around where it's just like a check in with each other when those things are happening. Um, and so it's just as important for us when we're not feeling safe or when we're feeling unsure to reach out and just to kind of connect base with our secure base or our internalized sense of security. But we don't have to do that alone, that we can lean on peers and colleagues for that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
there's some there's teaching pyramids. I don't know if your class has heard of it, but it's kind of social emotional kind of training for educators, and they talk a
Mm-hmm.
lot about positive descriptive acknowledgments, which is
Mm-hmm.
trying to catch the kid being good, or doing something well, and highlighting it. And I
Yeah.
think that part of it is also doing that for ourselves, because it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to look back at the end of your day and say, oh, I messed up that part, or I was just so stressed out, I don't know what to do. But finding which little moments where you felt good or felt proud
Mm-hmm.
of yourself, and that's, we often pay so much attention to the negative in our world to keep ourselves safe, but you have to really work hard to try to notice the positive. So I think that's
Yeah.
an important part of weathering through the challenges of being an educator.
Such a great point. I have one more question from our students. Do you have any tips or insights on how to advocate for kids who are overwhelmed in large groups, but the class ratios can't or won't be modified?
That's a challenge that we have a lot. I think that because there aren't a lot of schools around that are available that just have the smaller ratios. I think that for us, a lot of times when they are overwhelmed, we look at, is there something developmentally going on for them? And maybe, going through the school district,
Mhm.
sending in a request for an evaluation, they might be able to qualify for a special day class that has a smaller ratio and kind of teachers that are more kind of with the special ed background that
Mhm.
might be able to support the child, whether it's having some OT or speech or PT available to help. But I
Mhm.
think trying to figure out how to create that within your own program. Sometimes we've had suggestions for the class to split so that half of the class goes outside and does their outside time first and the other half does their circle time and then switch, and then that way you've already kind of created the smaller groups, and then maybe having a little corner where they can put on headphones and tune out, or having
Mhm.
their own little box that they decorate themselves to be their own like safe corner, some place that they can just kind of have that sensory break. There's some kids that need the break from the sounds and the lights and the people. And then there's some kids that need extra, that's where you're like, okay, here's the sensory corner where you can do your, jumping jacks and touch, that bar as high as you can and kind of get the sensory input so they're not like using their peers as like climbing gyms or, furniture, to like get their sensory needs met. So you're trying to
Mhm.
pay attention to both.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time to acknowledge how hard it is to be an early childhood educator, and that you're trying to reach to all ends of the extremes for all children, and we just can't be everything to everyone.
No,
Yeah.
no. But you just, try and pay attention, and you're only, one person, and just your love and your compassion goes a long way. Even
Mhm.
if you feel like at the end of the year, that child is going to elementary school without all the skills, the fact that they've had your relationship and
Mhm.
your love and your positive regard of cheering them on, that makes a huge difference. At this age, you become part of what they internalize as relationship. That might be different from what they have with their parents, an experience of another way that relationship can be, so it's
Yeah, if it
very
feels
important, valuable work, even if it feels so hard, a room full of kids, each with different needs, that you're trying to attend to all at the same time, it can be so overwhelming. So,
yeah.
so much self-care is needed.
Yeah. Oh man, I am just thinking of so many different teachers I've worked with who just feel like the unsung heroes of these communities, who are just doing jobs above and beyond what their kind of paid job is.
Yeah.
Um, I guess my last question would be, is there anything else that you would want early childhood educators to know, do, or believe in their roles, from your perspective as a mental health specialist?
I mean, I think, we covered the main ones around trauma, around backgrounds, around relationships, around sensory needs. I think that the one thing that also, especially in this day and age, is thinking about anti-bias work. And
Mm-hmm.
so then, really, I think it's not just about, oh, this person is a racist, I'm going to, kind of judge them. It's about how do we all that live in a society that does kind of put hierarchies and see different races in different ways, or not only race but people with different socioeconomic statuses or gender, orientation, aid, abilities. How might we have implicit biases within ourselves and be reflective of, what assumptions am I making about this family that is homeless, or this
Mm-hmm.
parent
Mm-hmm.
that is suffering from substance abuse?
Mm-hmm.
What assumptions am I having? Can I challenge that? And how can I engage in a way that is respectful, that is thoughtful, that is supportive, no matter what challenges the parent comes with. They are all struggling and in need of support. And so helping the child means helping, that parent as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for naming that. I know my own bias as a social worker is I just always feel like that's an implicit part of the conversation. So I'm getting better at making it explicit. You've also reminded me I'm going to include as one of the resources the diversity informed tenets for, I think it's now infant, child, and family mental health, but the Irving Harris Foundation has been instrumental for my development in this area. So I'll make sure I include that for the students and the resources.
I don't know if I was just thinking about there was a book that was recently out about early childhood. I think I don't know the title of it, and um, the author eludes me as well, but it's about kind of like cultural self-care. I'll send you the link to it.
Okay,
'Cause
great.
I think that would be really a great resource around self-care, but taking culture into account.
Mm-hmm.
Not all, think of self-care as, painting our nails, that there's different
Yes,
ways. It
yes.
could be getting together with large groups and cooking for other people might be our self-care. So I think that when we were talking about self-care and the importance of that, I think that that would be a good resource. So I'll send you the link for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to share?
I think we covered a lot. I'm totally open to connecting with any students who's interested, who has any questions or anything that they want to talk about.
Terrific. Well, again, I want to thank Stephanie for connecting us, and thank you for the work that you do and the service that you provide, but also for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely to be
And
able to.
amazingly, none of our children interrupted us.
I
It's like
know.
some magical Zoom land.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And all the best to the students. I think that you guys are doing such important work and such valuable work, being heart workers, spreading love, and healing. So.
Yeah. Oxytocin is the one thing that we know can heal trauma, and they give it all the time. So it's such a gift. Great. Well, thank you so much, Sunshine. I'll end our recording.